Welcome to the Scalability Code, the podcast that helps you get out of the shit show and start growing your business. A few times each month, you'll hear stories and commentary from visionary entrepreneurs, EOS implementers, and fractional COOs about how they've taken businesses to level 10. And now, for your host, Matt Haney.
All right, thank you for joining us for another episode of the Scalability Code. Today, we're here with my other Matt, the other Matt Haney. Matt, welcome to the Scalability Code. Thanks for joining us.
Haney talks to Hahne. I love it.
Yeah, Haney and Hahne. It's so funny. We shared this laugh. I was on the phone with somebody or on a meeting, and someone was like, "Oh, you know Matt Haney?" I'm like, "No, I am." And he's like, "No, the other Matt Haney." I was like, "Wait, time out. There's another Matt Haney in the world doing EOS." And they said, "Yeah, but they spell it differently." So for our viewers, go ahead and tell us how you pronounce your last name.
It's like Connie with an H, Hahne.
So you've got Matt Hahne and Matt Haney. Boy, that's not going to be confusing as hell for everybody. But
I just used Matt and Matt.
That's right. The two Matts running the show. Thanks for joining us, Matt. I'm
happy to be here.
To know you and learn about your business and learn about your background. And just like any, formal meeting of two strangers, you and I don't know each other. So what better way to get to know each other than ask a bunch of questions about your background?
Yeah, come on. Bring it.
Give me them 1 minute background on what you did before your implementer world and also kind of how you got here and what you're doing now.
Yeah, entrepreneurial family, fell in love with the maritime industry. I did probably 35 years in the maritime industry.
What does that mean for our viewers? What do you mean by
maritime industry is ships, boats, barges, anything that floats or moves on the water.
There you go. That's cool.
So loading and discharging cargo onto ships and boats and barges, moving big oil rig wellhead platforms on barges from the U.S. Gulf Coast down to Venezuela, loading, you name it, I did it.
So were you on the side of the business that actually took the cargo and put it on the ship, or were you in the, tell us more about what that means in terms of
Yeah, I started scrubbing pots and pans for Miss Flo on the steamboat Natchez in New Orleans when I was 16. Became a deckhand the next summer and fell in love with the maritime industry, went to a maritime college, sailed around the world with both the Navy and the Merchant Marine. So I got a lot of miles underway on the water under my belt. Cool. Big ships, little ships, dredges, tankers, container ships, did it all. Moved ashore, managed ships for a long time, had that siren song of being my own boss in my ear. So like any good entrepreneur, I started my first business as a side hustle.
There you go.
While doing all of that. Yeah. And did marine salvage in the last 5 years of my life. And I was like, man, I am working 20-hour days.
So marine salvage, you were working either as a company or your company was doing salvage efforts for sunken vessels?
Yeah, so I worked for a company called Resolve Marine for 5 years, and then I left Resolve to go back to New Orleans and be a general manager at a stevedoring company on the Mississippi River.
So cool.
5 ships, 60 rail cars, maybe 120 trucks, and I don't know how many barges a day.
That's incredible.
Yeah, but I was short-lived in that. As you can imagine, it was pretty quick.
That's a grind,
pretty quick
right?
turnaround. Then I started my own business. My third business was loading and discharging ships offshore.
So what does that mean?
A lot of ships would come into New Orleans or come to New Orleans, and they were too heavy to come into the Mississippi River. So somebody had to figure out a way to discharge them offshore. That was us.
So you would go out to the container ship, which was moored out in the Gulf, and you would offload it kind of piece by piece.
Yeah, usually not a container ship. It was bulk ships that were somebody that loaded either bulk grain or bulk steel or bulk.
So not
copper,
containers. Yeah. There's a massive amount of grain or something on there that was loose, and you guys would come in and take it off and put it on a smaller ship. Would you put it in an actual container then, or would you put it what would you do?
Smaller ship. Yeah, you were spot on with a smaller ship.
Very cool.
Yeah. But like any good entrepreneur, I found myself running, 20-hour days and no time for my growing family. Didn't know which way was up. Nobody kind of knew what we were doing.
Right.
A buddy said, "Hey, you got to read this book, Traction," and it changed my life. And So I sold all 3 of my businesses and became a full-time EOS implementer in February of 2020 when the world shut down.
Literally.
Timing was a little
wait.
off.
So were you running on EOS before you
Yeah.
pulled the plug? Okay, so you had, again, started it, read the book, figured it out, implemented it yourself, were running your company, and then said, wow, this is my calling, is to go help others implement or help others run the system.
It's a great term that you use, calling.
Yeah.
It's a calling.
Every implementer I know is like, because it's a grind. Most people don't know what kind of a grind it is you guys have to do every day when you're running 100+ sessions a year, or 150 sessions a year. I mean, it's a lot of energy to stand at that table, at that whiteboard every day and listen to people, vomit their problems to you every day. So you said you started your journey at EOS February of 2020
when COVID when the shutdown happened. Yeah.
Wow. So you couldn't have built a business during a harder time.
Yeah. I got my first client in April of 2020 and my second client in like October or November of 2020.
Wow. What a dry spell there.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah. It was kind of crazy. We had a really good group of, when implementers become implementers, they go to a thing called boot camp. And I had a great boot camp, and my boot camp was very, very tight. And we shored each other up during that hard time. And, we spent a lot of time practicing on each other.
Yep.
But then, once 2021 came around, things were pretty good. And now I've been at it for 5 years. So things are pretty magical.
That's amazing. Well, congrats.
Thank you.
So give me an example. And I always ask this question, and I know the answer. So I'm going to tell you, you cannot say all types of businesses. Do you find yourself in a certain niche or any similarity or any like? Yes. Okay. Thank you. Most people are like, oh, every business. I'm like, I know every business, but tell me more.
I have clients all the way from like marketing, law firms to a sand mining business.
Love that.
Yeah. So, I cover the spectrum, but for me, I find, very high dysfunctioning visionaries.
Yes.
I'm very attracted to high dysfunctioning visionaries. I like to get them out of all the many seats.
So you have to give me an example, because I have worked myself with several high functioning, highly dysfunctional visionaries. Tell me give me some characteristics that you see
of high dysfunctioning visionary.
Yes.
It's my baby. I can't let it go.
Yeah, man. If I had $1 for every time I heard that or experienced it, I wouldn't need to work with clients. I just sit there and collect the money from people that would saying, man, I just can't let go of the vine. I had it last Thursday.
Or how about this one? Yeah. There's no chance that anyone can do it the way I do it.
Yeah.
That's true, but also not scalable.
Right. Oh, I'm eating that dog food right now in my own personal business, just trying to scale my business, and my team around me is like, I finally said, just stop including me, because I'm going to be the one that slows it down. And they're like, Matt, did you hear yourself? I'm like, yeah, I have to say it out loud to verbalize the fact that I think I can do it better than everyone else. And I can, but I can't scale.
Your affirmation for the next couple of weeks needs to be, I am the bottleneck.
That's right.
It is at the top.
Yep. Get me out of the way. Okay. Give me another characteristic of a highly functioning but dysfunctional visionary.
Yeah. Their vision is so big, only they can see it.
Ah. Yes. Interesting. Huh. Very cool. So did you tell me what types of industries that you said? Sand industry, which I was fixated on that.
Oh.
So do they tend to be service specific, or any blue collar, or any?
No, I mean, I'm good with any of them. I seem to attract, I like on the narcissistic scale, I like them to be a 5 to 7. Over 7, I end up, seeing a little too much of my prior self in that.
Yep.
I don't know. I guess.
Yep.
But the other thing that I found is I'm not real good with engineering firms.
Interesting.
Because the attention to detail, the finite work that they really want to get into. I'm like, hey, go back and figure that out back when you get back in the shop. We don't need to figure that out today. Today we're just talking about the what, not the how.
That's exactly
just tell me
right.
what success looks like. Don't give me the how we're going to make the sausage. I just want it to taste good.
I always say, I want to make sure it tastes good and doesn't kill me. That's it. The sausage, the old sausage.
I love it.
Let me ask you a couple more questions. I'm dying to know about 35 years on the sea, or in the business of being on the sea. How do people stay sane when you're out at sea for that long, and just kind of did you ever have any tricks, or how did you sort of stay? I mean, obviously when you're working, but when you're not working the other 14 hours a day, you got to stay busy.
The work when you're in it is busy. You're standing on the bridge of the ship, and it's you and maybe at nighttime one other person. In the daytime, it's just you.
Yeah.
And you got 70,000 tons under you that can't stop on a dime.
It can't stop at all.
Yeah, it takes about 11 football fields
to come to a complete stop.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
So,
momentum's a bitch.
You got some responsibility.
Yeah.
And you see some things out there, and then, loading and discharging. You can't let the ship flip over. That'd be a bad day.
That'd be a bad day. That'd be a not so good, very bad day.
Yeah.
And did you have a family at all while you were traveling out on the ocean?
Yeah, I sure did. I started growing my family when I took my first job ashore in the maritime industry. I thought, okay, it's time for me to move ashore and not go to sea anymore. And that was kind of not true. That was an untruth, because when you work in the maritime industry, you end up traveling everywhere anyway.
That's right. You just got to go where you got to go.
Matt, you loaded this very special General Electric cargo in Newport News. You have to be the one that discharges it.
No one else can do it the way
Egypt.
You do it, Matt. No one else can do it that way.
Yeah. So I saw a lot of fun places. Qasr, Iraq, in 2004, 5, somewhere around there. Mm-hmm. Venezuela, a lot of time in Venezuela. China, spent 3 weeks, a 3-week period, 2 or 3 times in China, trying to build a spill response company in China.
Wow.
Yeah, did a lot of fun stuff.
That's awesome. And I mean, all of that work informed where you are today in your implementer space. That's fantastic. Where do your clients tend to be? Are they spread out geographically, or where do you do virtual sessions? Tell us about your practice a little bit.
Yeah, Matt. I am what's called a dual market implementer. I'm a dual coastie. So I work New Orleans and Santa Barbara, California, and that's it.
Very cool.
Yeah, I'm at the point, I'm not good on virtual. I can do it in a pinch. My preference is to be in person in Santa Barbara or in New Orleans.
Got to be at the whiteboard.
Love the whiteboard.
Gotta love the
Being
whiteboard.
a whiteboard is pretty magical.
It is. I was so funny. Being a fractional integrator, I've had the pleasure of sitting in a few different people's sessions, and I think that's one of the neat things that we get to do is you work with a variety of implementers. You get to see a variety of different styles, and selfishly, I love working with implementers for many reasons. But one of my favorite is that I don't have to be at the whiteboard. I don't have to be in control of the meeting. I mean, I facilitate and run so many L10s over the last 7 years that it's nice to be an attendee, not a host or a facilitator. So it's really special for me to be on this side of the whiteboard, watching the masters at the craft.
You've got a different perspective as a fractional integrator. You can speak to self-implementers with some pretty serious authority. The difference between facilitating a quarterly session yourself versus having an implementer facilitate it.
What is the difference?
Yeah,
I can tell you, it's exponential. It's not incremental. The difference between being in a quarterly with someone who self-implements versus being in a quarterly with an implementer is night and day, and the darkest of dark and the brightest of brights. And the main reason for that, well, there's 2 reasons, I think. There's probably 7. But the one that really comes to mind is being able to know the room. So Matt, when you stand in front of the room at that whiteboard, you know the participants. Now there may be a new person that's come on, but for the most part, you know the visionary, his or her tendencies. You probably know most of the seats on the accountability chart. You know where they're going to go. You know where they're going to get bogged down, and you get to facilitate those changes. And the best implementers let the discourse happen and the discomfort and the aha moments come out, and then just kind of push towards a solution. So I think that's what you really get with an implementer is creative and critical thinking, as well as questioning and pushing. And some of the best integrators, our implementers I've worked with are those who listen more than they speak. And it's really hard because at the session table and at the whiteboard, your job is to facilitate and speak and challenge. But looking over at an implementer while I'm watching the leadership team and he or she is sitting there just like understanding the dynamic and trying to figure out what's happening, and do I interject? Do I let them get there? I mean, it's a really special skill.
I think that the problem is, if you don't have a facilitator, you have to do that facilitating. And you miss so much. You're not able to participate as a member of the leadership team because you're so busy trying to facilitate. I see that in my own L10. In my own L10s, I'm facilitating the L10, and I'm like, man, this sucks because I feel like I'm facilitating instead of being a member of the team.
And that's one of the things I work with on a lot of my clients. Matter of fact, I just got off an L10 earlier, which there's a really strong sales leader on the company. She's awesome. She loves EOS. And her sales leadership team meeting, I still sit on as the fractional integrator, but she leads it. And it's a relief for me because I'm like, I don't have to be on the mouse. I don't have to be dead in issues. But one of the things that and I don't know, Matt, how you feel about this, but I've gotten really intentional this year about requiring all of my teams to log into 90. I use 90.0 religiously. And I require to see up at the top who's attending the meeting. And if you're in an L10 with me, I make you join the meeting, and I'll see your name up there, and I'll ask you, hey, Matt, will you grab that issue? Will you go ahead and grab that issue for me? Can you do that behind the scenes? Or, hey, Matt, would you mind going ahead and assigning a to-do for yourself for that? So I don't have to stop what I'm doing in the middle of the meeting to open up the to-do, try to get the to-do, blah, 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 blah. And maybe I'm an idiot, but I didn't realize I had the authority to do that. Of course, I knew that I had the authority, but I just assumed that I was there facilitating, to your point. So I had to do everything. But I think really, and I teach that to a lot of my clients, is like, you need to be facilitating the meeting, but everyone else in the meeting can participate. They don't need to just sit there and check email in the background.
Preach it.
Preach it. You are listening to the Scalability Code. I'm your host, Matt Haney, founder of Sinclair Ventures, and we help visionary entrepreneurs like you get out of the shit show and focus on growing your business. We offer fractional COO and leadership coaching services that free up that brain of yours to focus on what's next. Learn more about us at sinclairventures.com. Now back to it. Okay, so let's see. One of the questions I like to ask everyone, because I feel like this is the thing that one of the things I struggle with, is tell me your experience in amending, editing, or updating scorecards. It's a big, hairy one, but I won't lead you any further. I'll let you tell me, and then I'll jump in.
So, my experience with scorecards is recent. The EOS conference was in April, and I was asked to present in the hangover plot at the EOS conference. You know what that is?
Yeah, it's 8 a.m. on whatever morning.
Friday morning, right. Yeah. So I was asked to speak on scorecards, and it was doubly odd because the data book just came out, and data book was released at the EOS conference. I was like, wait a minute, what's going on here? Why are you asking me to talk about? And it turned out to be a fantastic presentation. I led into that with the idea of the UK rowing team, and how they never won a gold medal. And they took everything that they could. If it didn't make the boat go faster, they didn't mess with it. So what is your way of making the boat go faster? I think ultimately here's the super secret on scorecards. Are you ready?
I'm ready. I'm listening. Bated breath.
Here it is. The scorecard just needs to tell a team that they're winning or losing the game. That's it.
Yeah.
And so I see that you're a Longhorn fan. And so when you're watching football in the SEC, there's a nice little banner at the bottom of the TV. And what does it have in it? Tell me, what does it have in it?
It has the scorecard.
Score. It has the score, time remaining, what down it is, yards to first down.
Just those crucial elements.
Yes, the things that matter. That's what a company scorecard or a team or an organization or a unit scorecard should be. Just enough data to tell the team that they're winning or losing so they can rally around that win. Now, is there a wide receiver that's tracking yards per carry? Yards after first contact? How many tackles were shrugged? Of course, but those are individual measurables that tell us that that person is doing their key roles on the accountability chart well. I just need the scorecard to tell you whether you're winning or losing. Now, I got 3 analogies to help people build scorecards if you want to hear them.
Let's hear it. Come on.
Okay, the first one is right out of the book Traction, the very first 2 paragraphs of the data chapter in Traction are a corny joke. Gino had a lot of corny jokes. They came from his dad, who was the king of corny jokes. But the idea here is you're on a plane crossing the Atlantic Ocean, and the plane flying, right? And the pilot comes out from the cockpit and says, hey, good news and bad news. The bad news is none of our gauges are working. None of them. We don't know how fast we're going. We don't know what direction we're going. We don't know how much fuel we have. We don't know if we're flying down or up into space. We don't know. But the really great news is we're making great time.
And we're still in the air.
Yeah. So what gauges do you need to tell you that you're flying the plane, running the company the way you want? For an integrator, I'll argue there's only 2 gauges that an integrator runs their company by: profit and percentage completion of blocks and to-dos, or milestones and to-dos.
Sure.
That's it.
Yeah.
Everything else, if your profit and your to-dos and rock completion or milestone completion is good, that's good. The companies go where it should. And then the other analogy is think of a road, and you have a destination. So you get your phone out and you plug into Waze or Google Maps. That's your 1-year plan.
Yep.
Your 1-year plan is everything. Well, this is where we're headed. And then kind of, when I learned how to drive, my dad told me aim high, drive down the road, not right in front of the hood. So that's your rocks. That's what you're paying attention to right now. So the 1-year plan is where you're going. The attention right now, the 90% of the time you're looking out the windshield, paying attention to driving forward, not looking right over the hood. That's your rocks. And then the boom, the rumble strips on the side of the road that tell you you're about to go in the ditch and spend a lot of time and money, that's your scorecard.
Yep.
Your scorecard tells you you're about to cut way off track and you need to pay attention or you're going to spend money and time.
That's exactly right. So well said. I love the simplicity of those analogies, and even the biggest of visionaries can understand those. So I'm glad you put those together in a way that such good analogies.
Winning.
Let me dig a little further because we have the time, and I certainly have the interest. And again, I'm not looking for an exact amount here, but how often are you changing the scorecard quarterly with your clients?
The scorecard needs to change at a minimum of quarterly. Because your rocks change quarterly, and your scorecard needs to tell you that you're on track to get your rocks done. So your scorecard should probably change quarterly as well if it needs to. Remember, back to rule number 1, are you winning or losing the game?
Yeah.
That's all it needs to tell you. Are you winning or losing? But if it tells you that your rocks are on track, that's great too. Sometimes you need a short distance scorecard item. So sometimes you need a short distance scorecard item. Maybe you're going to have a campaign, like 8 cash flow drivers campaign. So you got to add like a 6-week thing to the scorecard just to track it for those 6 weeks.
Yep. Well, it's funny. Everyone's like, "Oh, we can't touch that metric." When I'm like,
it's
why?
Your scorecard.
By the way, it's been green for the last 16 weeks. Like,
oh, I love that.
I love that too.
I love
I'm like,
that.
Congratulations, it's green. But can we do something different? Can we push ourselves? Is it right?
Or yeah, I love industrial companies want to put safety on their scorecard. And I'm like, why?
Yeah.
They're like, because it's the most important thing to us. So I was like, yeah, I get that. Truly, I understand that. Maybe it should be up in your core values or
Right.
something, but not on the scorecard, because let me ask you, how many safety incidents are you having? They're like, one a quarter. I was like, that's not giving you the
working for 'em.
contrast. You need contrast
Yeah.
on your scorecard.
Yep.
You need the roller coaster. If you don't have the roller coaster, you don't know. You need contrast. So anything that's like one is not a good number for your scorecard. You measure something that has contrast.
Exactly. Well, I led you into this because I'm dealing with a client that is, and I want your expert opinion here. So
Expert.
yes, expert. They're a high functioning sales org. Founder and co-founder, both high functioning sales executives.
Okay.
And no surprise, they've built a very robust sales team in the medical device space. Very successful company, doing great things. But they've built a business tracking, lagging indicators, not leading indicators. So they're tracking the outcomes, but not tracking the activity that leads to the outcomes. So we're tracking how many sales we're having, but we're not tracking the activity to get those sales. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, that works fine, Matt, when you've got great revenue, because revenue hides a lot of problems. But when the revenue slides, everyone's
revenue is like a fresh coat of paint in a house for sale. It hides a multitude of sins.
Absolutely. So when the revenue slides a little bit, and the lagging revenue indicators show some, and then I go, okay, we got to put some activity metrics on here. So I want to get your thoughts. Obviously, you know where I'm going. I like to track activity because it's a leading indicator, not a lagging indicator. What are your thoughts?
Yeah. So, painful tool that nobody likes to use, but it's the most powerful tool we have. It's the getting what you want tool. And like every other EOS tool, it's very simple.
Yeah.
Until you start using it, and you're like, oh, this makes my brain hurt.
Right.
The getting what you want tool, if you want 4 million in revenue, okay, how do you get 4 million in revenue? Well, we have, 2 million in recurring revenue sales and 2 million in project sales. Okay. So how much do we have in recurring revenue now? 200,000. Oh, and we got to get to 2 million. Okay. So we got to figure out and work backwards.
Yeah.
What leads you from this square to the next square? What gets you to that square? And if you work yourself back, the great example I have of this is private jet managing company. They manage chartered private jets for people that have jets. And they're like, we want 7 more jets in our portfolio. Okay, to get 7 more jets, how many, what leads to that? Contracts. Wait, when you have a contract that didn't lead, they're like, no. So how many contracts do you need for 21 contracts? Okay, so only a third of contracts lead to actual jets under management. Got it. Okay, how do you get 21 contracts? We need to have probably somewhere around 70 to 80 dinner and dining and in-person conversation. How do you get those? We need to have 180 proposals. How do you get the proposals? We need to have a first call, a scheduled meeting.
Yep.
And eventually they worked it backwards and they realized, hold on a minute, that many qualified leads in their market.
Yeah. So did they change and go to a different target market?
Yeah. So it was a real aha. So using this getting what you want tool to work backward to figure out what leads to this number. To get this number, what do we need to do?
Yep.
To get this number, what do we need to do?
Yeah. What is the activity that leads to the outcome?
Yeah. And if you start with revenue at the end, usually in my experience, around 4 to 6 boxes back, you're going to see great departmental or unit scorecard items.
Yep.
6 to 8 numbers back, you're going to see great individual numbers. And in sales, it always leads to, qualified leads or SEO work or something like that. And a first appointment, you got to talk to people. You got to eventually talk to people.
But let me jump in for a second, because I agree with you. I'd welcome feedback on that. How do you changing that culture and you got ownership at the level that's saying, Fractional Integrator, come in and help us, show us the way. And oh, by the way, we don't want to track activity because we don't want to change the culture of the company, yet our revenue's sliding, and you need to help us save revenue.
Culture of the company. I'm confused.
Yeah.
Culture of the company. What? What did I miss?
Yeah. But what do you say? What do you do? What's your go-to?
Is the culture of the company to not get a paycheck for doing work?
That's exactly what I'm saying, is like, you're going to lose revenue and therefore people's jobs are at stake here. And well, we don't want to manage. We don't micromanage. We want a big brother. And I'm like, guys, we've got to stay focused.
No, it's not micromanaging. Here is a huge, we've gotten too nice as a society in the United States post-COVID. We don't want to offend anyone.
Upset, yeah.
That's it. Okay. I don't want to offend anyone either, but I also want to do the right thing by someone, the kind thing, because nobody wants to be a failure.
Right.
Nobody wants to be a failure.
Right.
So by us helping to hold them accountable, measurables, hey, if I am a failed guy and you give me, I got to do 3 proposals a week, I got to make 25 calls a week, and I got to have 16 first appointment face-to-face. Okay, if I know that that's my yardstick that I'm going to be measured against, then I am clear in what I have to do to be a rock star at this company.
Yep.
Anything other than having those individual measurables is inconsiderate and doesn't produce clarity. And quite honestly, rock stars, people that GWC their seat, they want to be measured so they can show how well they're doing.
Every type A badass salesperson I've ever known brags about their activity. They can't tell you fast enough how good they are based on the activity they're putting forward.
Matt, it's not micromanaging. It's measure managing.
Yeah.
And people that GWC their feet don't see it as micromanaging.
Yep. That's exactly right. Man, that's so well said. And you got me all fired up, because that's exactly right. It's like the best salespeople will tell you how great they are based by their numbers. And not just the revenue. You got to look at all of the, one of my first managers used to say, you've got to put the recipe together, get it out of the cookbook, put the recipe together, and your product will come out. Meaning, set your measures, hit your measures, put the ingredients in, and then your cake will come out. You know, you forget the eggs, you're not going to get the cake to rise. So it's really interesting to jump down in that. What are some challenges you've seen in the session room lately? Like, what were some of if you can spend a minute thinking about anything that's come up where you had an unlock or an aha moment?
Let's talk about electronics.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So, I try to have a strict phone policy, but lately that's been really, really hard to implement. And, some of the tough old school implementers are like, it's not tough. It's the same as it's always been. I'm like, no, it needs to be different now. So I've asked a couple of people for help, and I found some really great help from Dr. Lori Santos from the Happiness Lab at Yale.
Okay.
And she referred me to this book that Maury Price wrote. And Maury Price can come to 3 things, right? Every time you reach for your phone. What for? Why now? What else?
What for? Why now? What else?
Yeah. What are you reaching for it for?
Yep. Why is the time?
It's because you're bored.
Yeah.
Why now?
Yep.
Why now? And what else? Meaning, what are you missing out on by being on your phone in that time? And so in this session, I'm like, hey, let's focus on that what else for a minute. Right now, what's more important than us being aligned for the greater good of the organization? What's more important than us hitting our 1-year goal and celebrating that at the end of the year?
Right.
Nothing. Okay, then why do you have your phone?
Exactly. Why now? Why? And
why
you
now?
get to the point where you feel comfortable, calling out somebody respectfully, of course, in the session and saying, hey, how do you handle it?
Yeah, so a couple of the EOS implementers have electronic spas. So I have a basket now in the room, and I'm like, hey, your phones seem to be working really hard right now. They probably need a break in the electronic spa. So either you can put them in the spa or I'll put them in the spa.
Yeah, good for you. Good for you. And I see that a lot. And we're all guilty. I think but if we can help ourselves from ourselves, then we should do that by removing that distraction. Love that.
Oh, what for? Why now? What else? And
Yeah.
I mean, that's curbed a lot of my use on the phone.
Yeah, no, that's
'Cause
really,
it's
really
the what
helpful.
else? What are you missing? What are you missing?
What are you? Yeah, most of the times you're not missing. You're missing something from the session. I can promise you that. And you're not missing something on the phone because, I have do not disturb. I try to use it pretty religiously. And the only number that comes through is my wife's or maybe my kids if I set them in there. And when I'm in a session or quarterly, it's known like, hey, if you need me and the world's falling apart around you, call me.
Yeah.
But otherwise, let's save what's for dinner conversation for after the meeting. Like we can plan the grocery ingredients later, or I'll handle dinner. Don't worry about it. So, and that's got to be distracting for you guys as well, standing at the whiteboard.
It is. So I think electronics and just the distraction, the general distraction of all of us right now.
Yeah.
All of that stuff you can probably do by time blocking it into one little part of your calendar or something,
Right. Well, I'm gonna segue us because I have an interesting thought, and it is around distractions.
Okay.
I can't help but think of AI and the use of artificial intelligence and LLM models, like all of those things. Have you dove into that, or do you see that in your client sessions? Or give me any backstory you have on sort of what AI is doing to some of your clients, good or bad.
Yeah, I haven't seen it in the session room so much. We've experimented with it a little bit, but ultimately I think AI is more practical in the how.
Mm-hmm.
But when we're in session and we're setting rocks for the quarter, we're working on what does success look like. They don't need AI to tell them what success looks like.
Right.
They know what success looks like at the end of the quarter, so they don't need AI for that. Maybe they need AI to come up with the how, the milestone plan that delivers the rock.
Right.
But they don't need AI to figure out the what. We're seeing a lot of powerful AI work in every facet of company now. Like, some of the talking heads are talking now that technology, like 1,000 years of technology acceleration is going to be done in about 10 years.
Matt, it's crazy where we are today. I'll give you a quick example. So I'm working on a proposal for a prospective client. They're not going to see this by the time I win or lose that work, so it's not going to be a super secret. But I'm analyzing some data for them and getting some of their spreadsheet information around how many. They're a big company, so right, they're very vertically integrated. They got 25 different L10s going a week. 25. Mm-hmm. And I asked them to go ahead and rank their scorecard, their quality of their L10s because I was going to come in and help facilitate and help you go. So I spit it in and I was like, okay, I only have this much time per week. So I dumped this spreadsheet in and I asked it to give me a plan on how often I should, because the meetings are ranked 1 to 10, 1 being bad, 10 being the best, and created and sorted it, dump all this information into a spreadsheet to create a plan for me on what would your plan of attack be to get these meetings to this level based on this period of time, allocating this much time every week, and all of a sudden, it spits it out.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Compare these two proposals. Tell me the difference between the two. Like, there's so much stuff out there that are going to fundamentally change small to mid-sized businesses.
Massively. I think anybody, solopreneur and up, needs to be thinking about how to use AI in their business, including us.
Someone said to me the other day, the invention of modern machines. Everyone was scared when the loom came out. That made allowed people to not keep. I mean, it's like all of these modern technology. And guess what? People evolved and got better. When industrial machines, the steam engine, the train, the car, the plane. Guess what? People still find a way to persevere and survive.
Yeah, and I think it's no different now. I think, people are asking all the time, what's going to be replaced by AI? I think there's a lot of stuff out there, but the human connection will thrive. Mm-hmm. And I think human connection is a place to invest time and energy in the future.
That's exactly right.
So spend more time being human with your human.
That's exactly right.
Invest in face-to-face, invest in human connection, because I think that's going to be the currency of the next generation.
You're so funny. I was listening to a podcast. I don't listen to a lot of podcasts but I had some time in the car. And one of them was from one of the original founders of Twitter. And he has obviously made $1 zillion and created now his new latest and greatest technology app is to create a place for people to get together in person. He's taking all of the disconnection he created by forcing people to go to this app and create 42 characters of communication. And now he's using it going the other way, which is how do we get back together for humans to be humans and facilitate that interaction that we've gone. I mean, I can't believe we have to create technology to do that, but that's kind of where we are.
Well, I mean, for any supervisor out there that's listening to this, don't ask AI, ask your direct hires.
Yeah. Yeah, well said.
I mean, that's what you're giving them a paycheck to do, is to use their brain.
That's right.
Use their brain, like empower them to be more creative, and their ideas that they're providing you, let them go to AI if they want. But for you as a supervisor, you have employees that should be sourcing ideas for you.
Yep.
But we've gotten away from that. Where you gotta empower your direct hires to do the work.
Yep.
Gotcha.
No, absolutely. Absolutely.
Gotcha.
Well, I love chatting with you. If you've got any questions or anything else, I'm happy to answer them. But I've loved spending time with you. And I love the fact that we had no connection to each other than a very similar name and an interest in EOS. And here we are, chatting about the world and AI and people and reporting. And so I just want to thank you a lot for your time and let you know I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on. I'm looking forward to seeing future podcasts.
Awesome, Matt. Thanks for your time. I'll talk to you soon, sir. Be well.
Okay.
Thanks for joining us on the Scalability Code. Take care.
Thank you for listening to the Scalability Code. If you made it this far, please follow the show on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Let's get out of the show together. We'll see you next time on the Scalability Code.